Most intuitive Black women have learned that giving themselves grace is a sign of weakness. That's where the frustration comes from. That's where the anger comes from. Because in this approach, giving yourself grace is not allowed because you don't want to be weak. So what starts to happen is that in this approach, in order for you to materialize what you desire, you rely on negative self-talk as your number one tool for motivation. Hola, mis amores. How is your spirit today? Today, I am going to cover the best way to master the art of giving yourself grace with joy. And I have my notes ready. So if you see me looking to the side, it's because I am making sure that I remain focused on the exact lessons I want to share with you so that you too may master the art of giving yourself grace with joy. If you are an intuitive Black woman leader and you are ready, you are desiring to confidently give yourself grace, especially when it comes to your self-trust, get ready. Get ready because in today's episode, I'm going to share with you everything to ensure that you do exactly that. I am going to walk you through the exact same steps that I am taking right now to give myself grace and to practice self-forgiveness every single time things don't go my way. Like for example, today, I am releasing this episode on a Friday when my intention is to release it on a Wednesday. I'm going to share with you how I'm staying grounded and giving myself grace in this very moment. And it's a great time to do this. It's a great time to do this because I'm currently getting ready to take 10 amazing Black women with me on a journey to giving themselves grace and trusting their intuition at a deeper level. So if you decide to be a part of that, I'm going to share with you how you can join us later in this episode. But because I'm getting ready to do that, it's the perfect time to show you this process. It is the perfect time to walk you through how you too can go through this process with joy. This love letter, y'all, this love letter is for every single intuitive Black woman leader that desires to feel excited and joyful about treating herself with compassion. This is for every single intuitive Black woman leader that's ready to embrace the beauty of prioritizing herself when it comes to her body, with her mind, with her heart, and with her spirit. This is for the woman leader that is ready to enjoy the journey of self-trust as much as the destination. So if that's you, you are going to get the most out of today's episode. Now, are you listening? Are you listening to this episode on ApplePodcast? If so, it's time you leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star or a 6-star review to show your love and let us know that you are enjoying these amazing conversations that you and I have been having. Now, the Yenory Pouncil podcast is a video podcast. So if you are listening to us on Apple Podcast, make sure that you head to the show notes and you grab the link to our YouTube video so that you can get the full podcast experience on YouTube. You get to watch the visuals and you also get to see everything, the magic that Yenory brings to the table. So I look forward to seeing you on YouTube as you're joining us. And if you're catching us on YouTube, let me know how your spirit is doing today below this video. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, head to the YouTube channel and let me know how your spirit is doing today. If you're feeling aligned, remember to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so that you can be notified as soon as we drop an episode. Because if you don't hit that notification bell, it's not going to work. That's just how YouTube works. And I want you to be the first to know when I drop a love letter, because if you're here, it's because you enjoy these. And I want to make sure that you get them. So please consider sharing this episode with somebody you love, especially if you find it helpful, because sharing is caring, y'all. Yes. So before we get started, I told you that I'm dropping this episode on a Friday instead of the Wednesday, which is when I like to drop them. There's a few reasons why that is. One of those reasons is because I am getting ready to host a virtual experience, and I want to invite you to join me. I want to invite you to join me to be a part of Unleash Your Icon Energy. And if you have enjoyed this podcast episodes, you're going to have an amazing time with me. So here's the deal. Here's what's happening. Unleash Your Icon Energy is a magical experience, and it's guiding you it's guiding you through the journey from becoming to being. Because becoming is about the future and being is about the now, y'all. And all we have is the now. Your power is in the now. So this magical experience that I am hosting is designed to help you open the floodgates of your divine feminine energy. So if you are about merging your divine masculine energy with your divine feminine energy, you're going to want to be in the room for this, because we are going to have an amazing time. And it's going to put you in a position where you can be in a state of overflow of what you desire in 30 to 90 days. So here are the details. We are going to meet on Tuesday, April 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you plan on joining us, you want to make sure you block 90 minutes on your calendar. Block out 2 hours if you're feeling spicy, because I am going to stay and answer questions for you about how you too can unleash your icon energy, how you can show up powerfully and trust your intuition at a deeper level and put it in charge of every area of your life with ease and with joy. So make sure that you block that time on your calendar. Now, to join me, there is going to be a link below in the show notes of this episode. So if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can check the show notes. And if you are watching it on YouTube, you can check the description box, because that's where the show notes are going to be included. And I would love for you to be a part of this experience. We're going to have a great time. If you've never attended any of my virtual or live experiences, you are in for a treat, because I design with intuitive, Black, beautiful, amazing leaders in mind, in heart. And I know you're going to enjoy yourself. So make sure you grab a seat. There are 18 spots available, and we have 15 left at the recording of this episode. So make sure that you grab one so that you can be one of the 18 people that are in the room. Now, I also want to make you an invitation, especially for those of you that I know that you are ready to work with me and you are desiring to take the next level. You're like, Yenory, I don't even need to attend your virtual experience. I know you are my person. Where do I sign up? Where do I sign up? Listen, if that's you, I will open some room in my calendar. I open 9 spots on my calendar. These 9 spots are for those of you that are listening to this episode. It's for those of you that are watching this episode on YouTube, so that you can talk to me and we can co-create magic together. Now, if you want to work with me, what you want to do is book a self-trust audit with me. In this 45-minute conversation, so we're going to block out 45 minutes in the calendar, and you and I are going to have a one-on-one conversation. It's going to be me and you up in that call. And we're going to take a look at where you are. We're going to dive deep into what it takes to ensure that you are believing in yourself, that you are trusting your intuition, and that you are doing it with mental calm and inner peace. And that you're doing it prioritizing your self-trust with joy, because when you trust yourself, you're unstoppable. I know. I live that life. I see it with my clients all the time. I know it's possible for you. And I want you to have it. I want you to live it and to embody it and overflow it into the lives of people in your life, because I know you love that. I know you love to overflow into others. So if you're committed to putting your intuition first, these self-trust audits are transformational. They are transformational, and you want to click on the link in the description box below this video or in the show notes for those of you that are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, so that you can grab one. And you can be one of the people that get one of the 6 calls that I have available so far. If we're meeting for the very first time, hola mis amores. Welcome to the Yenory Pouncil podcast, where each episode is a love letter to my future self and to every single intuitive Black woman of the diaspora that is healing with joy. If you're new to the family, my zone of brilliance is my ability to bring my best self into everything that I create by trusting my intuition. You see, I've dedicated the last 14 years and counting, to ensuring that intuitive Black women are putting themselves first. They are putting their intuition first, all while being the best version of themselves, all while shifting their lineages, all while building their legacies, and doing this as the most authentic version of who they are. That's why your girl, me, I am the go-to spiritual guide for intuitive Black women leaders being focused on putting their intuition in charge of every single area of their lives with joy. For every single intuitive Black woman leader that's prioritizing their self-trust with joy, they come to me. Which brings me to today. So today, we're going to focus on mastering the art of giving yourself grace with joy. You may be surprised by this. Although not, if you are an intuitive Black woman, then you actually are very familiar with what I'm about to share. Most intuitive Black women leaders, they have learned that giving yourself grace is about not being capable. It's about not being able to achieve what you desire. I'm talking about they have learned that they gotta go harder. When they're not getting the things that they want, they've learned that I gotta go harder. I gotta force myself. They have learned to push and to fight through when the things that they are calling in, the things that they desire to materialize, are not happening in the timeline that they want. Intuitive Black women have learned something really interesting. You've learned that when you give yourself grace, what you think that's about, you think that it's about avoiding responsibility for yourself, and you see it as a sign of weakness. And this is why you get annoyed and frustrated. You get annoyed and frustrated when giving yourself grace and when giving grace to others, especially when you don't achieve your goals in the timeline that you've set for yourself. When your goals don't materialize in the exact way that you want them. When you feel forced to redirect and quote unquote slow down because of the uncontrollables of life. And when you do this, you become resentful. You become resentful towards yourself. You become resentful towards others. And you become resentful towards God or source energy or whatever you want to call it. Your heart becomes a fertile ground for resentment. And you become resentful towards your life, towards the unfolding of your life, towards the way things are happening in your life, when in reality, you desire to enjoy it. And the thing that starts to occur because of that is that instead of empowering you and replenishing you, which is what giving yourself grace is designed to do, it becomes a source of anger, a source of frustration, and a source of suffering. And then you begin to wonder. You wonder, why is it so hard for you to get things right the first time? Why can't you get the things you desire when you desire them? Why can't you get what you want when you want it? Why are you being forced to wait? What am I doing wrong? What are you doing wrong? And what is it going to take to fix it? I want to know, have you ever felt like this? Let me know in the comments below this video if you've ever felt like this. Because if you have, you're not alone. I want to tell you a story. In 2012, I recommitted myself to being healthier. This was after I moved back to the United States from Honduras, and I had found myself gaining about 20 pounds that I released just a year prior. And I set an intention, I set a goal for myself to release 20 pounds in about 3 months. Do you think that happened? No, it didn't. What happened was that I began this process and I realized that there were so many uncontrollables I hadn't considered. I realized that I had adopted a series of habits that resulted in the weight gain. And in order for me to address the weight gain, I had to first address those habits. I have been finding myself drinking at happy hours, eating some good food at the restaurants in New York. I was avoiding going to the gym because it was cold. I wasn't eating the food that was healthy because I was living at home and I was eating what my parents were cooking. And all of that contributed to me gaining weight. So while I set this goal to release 20 pounds in 3 months, when I began that journey, I realized that that wasn't going to work for me because there were so many other steps I had to take that were required of me to achieve the goal that I desire. Then in 2015, I made a decision to change my sleep schedule. And I talked about this a little bit in the previous episode. And when I made this decision, my intention was to go from going to bed around midnight to going to bed at 10:30 p.m. And at first, I was getting really frustrated because I was still going to bed at midnight and not at 10:30 p.m. And what I didn't realize was that in order for me to make it to bed by 10:30, there was quite a bit of adjusting that had to happen. My evening routine had to adjust. My shutdown routine, which I don't even think I even had at that time, was important. And because I didn't have these things in place, I was feeling frustrated with myself because I wasn't moving, quote unquote, fast enough. And that wasn't supporting me. That wasn't helping me get there. And the changes that I was making were not coming into effect overnight. And that wasn't feeling good to me because I am used to getting things quickly. I'm used to getting things done fast. And when I was having a difficult time implementing the things that I desire for myself, I didn't like how long it was taking me. And then this 2018. In 2018, both my husband and I quit our 9 to 5s. Collectively, we were making over 6 figures. I would say like in the high, close to $200,000 a year between the two of us. And I quit my job as a director of communications and membership relations. We packed our apartment from DC and we moved to Florida, particularly St. Petersburg, Florida. And we moved there because we wanted to figure out what we're going to be when we grew up, and ended up launching our own business, this business. And the intention was that we would replace our income, our combined income of over six figures in 2 years. Do you think that happened? If you answer no, then you got it right. Because it did not happen. It did not happen in 2 years. It did not happen in 3 years. Here's what actually happened. When we moved to St. Petersburg and we started to be business owners, we began to realize that there was quite a bit of emotional baggage that was standing in the way of our ability to be in business, that make profits, to face rejection. When I went in business, it's when I learned how much I was challenged with rejection, because until that point, I hadn't been in a situation where I was constantly putting myself in a position to be rejected. And that began to show me that before I can replenish those six figures in income with the business, I was going to have to look at myself. I was going to have to look at the way I was showing up. I was going to have to look at my emotions. I was going to have to look at my thinking, my way of being. And until that moment, I had never had to consider those things in that way. And he showed me that I was getting frustrated. I was getting resentful because I'm like, God, I've been at this for a minute. What's going on? I wanted to get the results in a certain timing. I wanted to get the outcome that I wanted, and he wasn't materializing. That's how I know. That's how I know what you've been through. That's how I know what you may be going through right now, because I've been there. And when I step into the unknown, I am there. And honestly, perhaps this is where you are right now. Here's what I learned though. And this is whether you know it or not, because we don't realize that there are things that we don't know that are having an impact on our reality, that are having an impact on how we show up in the world. Most intuitive Black women leaders, they're just like me. They are just like me, and they have learned a huge lie. They have learned that giving themselves grace is a sign of weakness. Oop. Let me drink some water. Most intuitive Black women have learned that giving themselves grace is a sign of weakness. That's where the frustration comes from. That's where the anger comes from. Because in this approach, giving yourself grace is not allowed, because you don't want to be weak. So what starts to happen is that in this approach, in order for you to materialize what you desire, you rely on negative self-talk as your number one tool for motivation. You use negative self-talk to get you to do the thing, to get you to hype yourself up, so that if you keep working harder, if you keep pushing yourself, then maybe you'll be able to get it right. Maybe you'll fix it. And then the things that you desire will start to materialize at the speed that you desire. That's the story that we tell ourselves. And in order for this approach to succeed, it requires that you avoid your humanity. It requires that you close your eyes to the reality that you're not a machine. The life has seasons for everything. And there's a season for the seed to be planted, and there's a season for it to bloom. The day you plant the seed is not the day that you eat the fruit. There is a reason why that is. Most of us, though, haven't learned that. We have not learned that, and it shows. It shows in the way that we treat ourselves. It shows in the way that we treat others. It shows in the way that we communicate with others, and it definitely shows in the way when we communicate with ourselves. Here's the truth. Giving yourself grace is not a sign of weakness. Giving yourself grace is a sign that you are taking responsibility for you. Giving yourself grace is about loving you. Giving yourself grace is about being kind to you, to your heart. Because your humanity starts with you. You're not a human doing, you're a human being. And as such, you get to be. You get to be the person that achieves, and you also get to be the person that gets challenged. You get to be the person that wins, and you also get to be the person that's stretched. It's not either or, it's yes and. And when you start to see that, things begin to change for you. It took me 5 years, y'all. It took me 5 years to learn that giving myself grace was designed to help me live a joyful life. It took me 5 years to learn that, and it doesn't have to take you 5 years. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm telling you right now. So it don't take you 5 years. Here's how I mastered giving myself grace, especially when it comes to listening to my intuition and trusting my intuition. Because the intuitive Black women know the vibes. Intuition doesn't care about what you have learned. It doesn't care about the thoughts you have been entertaining. When intuition speaks, it's guiding you. It's guiding you to where you desire to go. And that means letting go of situations, letting go of people, letting go of environments. These are the very things that you are maybe very attached to because they're familiar. And when your intuition says it's time to shift, it's time to shift, babes. And it doesn't always feel good. So, what's the key? The key to mastering the art of giving yourself grace with joy. The key to give yourself grace with joy and trusting your intuition with confidence is actually very simple. It's about meeting yourself exactly where you are. You want to pay attention to how you're acting versus how you think you are acting. You want to be an expert on you. And not just when it comes to caring for you. Be an expert for how you show up when you're caring for others, how you show up in your career, how you show up in your relationships, whether it's your marriage or your friendships, how you show up with your resources, how you show up with your energy. You want to pay attention to those parts of you so that you can get a holistic picture of where you are. How do you show up when things don't go your way? How do you show up when things do go your way? Are you willing to forgive yourself when you show up out of alignment? Do you judge yourself when you show up out of alignment? Do you treat yourself harshly when you're not being quote unquote perfect? Or are you compassionate with yourself when you're not in the energy of perfection? How do you treat you? How do you talk to you? And are you willing to be compassionate and kind to yourself when the goals that you have set for you do not unfold in the timeline that you want? Oh, because you know we love a timeline. I know, I'm raising my hand. I love a timeline. And there are moments when that timeline is not supporting us because life doesn't move how you want it to move. It's not linear. There are different things happening at the same time. So when you find yourself in a situation, when you're not getting what you want when you want it, what happens? Are you tapping into your courage to look at yourself, look at your actions with compassion and with ownership, with uncomfortable honesty about how you're showing up? I want you to write this down. The only person that can meet you exactly where you are, it's you. The only person that can meet you exactly where you are, it's you. Because no one knows you like you know you. No one. Not your mama, not your daddy, not your partner, not your children, not your friends. No one knows you like you know you. So it has to start with you. It has to start with you so that you can overflow that insight into all areas of your life, so that you can integrate your learning to support you as you're leading your career, as you're leading in your resources, as you're leading your teams, as you're leading in your relationships, as you are leading with joy, as you're trusting your intuition to guide you into whatever you desire to go. You got to start with you. That's what it takes to live in alignment, y'all. We often don't realize that. We don't think that that's what's required because we're used to accomplishing. The truth is, that's what it takes. It takes meeting yourself where you are. How else will you get to where you desire to go to if you don't know where you're starting from? And I know sometimes you feel like you got to go harder. I know sometimes you feel like you got to push through it. I've learned that every single time I am feeling like I got to push through it, it's because something is not aligned. It's because my intuition is not sending me in that direction. And whenever you feel like you got to go harder, what you are truly experiencing underneath that is you're not meeting yourself where you are. You're not meeting yourself where you are, and it shows. Because when you are in those situations, it's really an invitation. We don't see it like that because that's not what we have learned, especially those of us that are women of the African diaspora. We have learned that that means we're not working hard enough. We have learned that that means we need to work harder. That means that we need to push harder. That means that we need to triple down on our efforts. And in reality, it is an invitation. It's an invitation to put your heart first, to look at that inner critic energy and nurture it, to look at that voice that you may be hearing that says that you're not good enough, that says that you need to fight through this, you need to push through it, that you got to work harder, and give it your love. It's an invitation for you to unconditionally love yourself. It is an invitation for you to detach your self-worth from your accomplishments. It is an invitation for you to detach your self-worth from your accomplishments. It's you. It's you choosing to see that your value goes beyond anything you have achieved. Because the truth is that most of us have learned that we are only as good as our achievements. And we rely on that achievement to give us some type of high and some type of approval. So when you are experiencing giving yourself grace, it triggers that. And it triggers this feeling of, I'm not doing enough, because you are attaching your self worth to what you are achieving. And in reality, you're being invited to release that. And this is a daily decision. This is a daily decision. This is why it's uncomfortable, because it is a daily decision. And when you make this decision on a daily basis, you will feel uncomfortable at times. And I'm telling you now so that you know the key. You know the tea, because I don't want you to be like, you didn't tell me this. You have to have a reliable system. And I talk about that a lot in these episodes because it's what has made the biggest difference for me and for my clients. You got to have a reliable system to give yourself grace when it feels uncomfortable. You got to have a proven system to know exactly what tweaks to make when you get off track. This is a non-negotiable for you because those moments are going to emerge. And if you're not prepared, you're going to find yourself feeling frustrated, feeling resentful, feeling angry, and experiencing suffering. And that is a choice. You can choose to not move in that energy. And I know that giving yourself grace as a Black woman is extremely challenging. I am a Black woman. I know that this is challenging. I learned that giving myself grace was a sign of weakness. So I know that it is challenging to give yourself grace. Now, if you're currently challenged by putting your intuition first, this is normal. You are not alone. I said that already in this video because it's true. And I want you to be reminded of that because oftentimes we do feel alone. It can be quote unquote lonely at the top. Why? Because many of us are experiencing these things in silence. We're not talking about it. And here's what I want you to know. The most important thing for you to take away with you from this conversation is that giving yourself grace is only a small part of an effective self-trust strategy. I want to show you something. There we go. So what you're looking at here is a proven framework. This is a proven framework that we use to help intuitive Black women leaders embody their self-trust in 90 days, feeling excited to live the life they envision for themselves, focusing on routines and rituals in a way that leaves them feeling empowered and confident. It's actually an intimate journey into the most loving, compassionate, and confident version of you. And if you are an intuitive Black woman leader, if you are the go-to with your family, your career, your community, and you desire to get crystal clear on the one thing most aligned for you right now, to put your intuition in charge and to integrate your intuition in every single area of your life, you want to make sure you apply for a self-trust audit below. This is a 45-minute no-cost call to you to ensure that you are putting your intuition first and you're doing it with mental calm and inner peace, prioritizing your self-trust with joy. Now, you may be wondering, Yenory, why are you offering free self-trust audits? And the answer is actually very simple. Because when people book these calls, when they apply for these calls, there is a percentage of intuitive Black women leaders that we speak with that end up hiring us and working with us so that we can help them achieve these results. Listen, this is a no pressure call. I am not in the energy of pressure. I am on the energy of ease and flow. Either way, though, I'm going to help you get crystal clear on the exact step that's most aligned for you right now to put yourself on the number one spot of your to-do list with ease and joy, to give yourself grace with joy, with excitement. So again, if you're serious, only apply for this if you're serious. If you're serious about showing up to your self-trust with confidence instead of judging yourself for being human, apply for a self-trust audit right now. The link for this is going to be below in the show notes, or it's going to be below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Remember that having a reliable proven system to give yourself grace when you don't feel like it is important. Having a reliable proven system to know what tweaks to make when you get off track is a non-negotiable. And if you want to see this in action, I want to invite you to join me for my incredible virtual experience I'm hosting on April 30th. You gotta be in the room for Unleash Your Icon Energy because I'm gonna show you what this is like real time. I'm going to show you how you can do it for yourself. And I'm actually going to have people in the room that are going through this process right now that you can ask questions. So what we're going to do, we're going to get together on April 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern time for about 90 minutes. Block out 2 hours if you're feeling spicy. And in that time, I'm going to walk you through this process so that you can step into your energy of being. You can go from becoming to being the best version of yourself no matter what, to being the version of you that trusts your intuition in every single situation, to being the type of woman that is rooted in her divine feminine energy and allowing that energy to flow onto others effortlessly, releasing emotional blocks in 30 to 90 days. If that sounds sexy to you, if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, make sure that you are in the room. There is the link below this video and in the show notes below, in the show notes of the episode for those of you that are on ApplePodcast, where you can grab the link and join us for the Unleash Your Icon Energy experience. Let's do a recap. Okay, here's a recap. Today we unpacked the best way to master the art of giving yourself grace with joy. And it's important that you know this because when you give yourself grace with joy, it's easier to give it to others. And everybody's worthy of grace. Everybody's going through something. And when you give it to yourself, you're open to that reality and you willingly share that grace with others because you're meeting yourself where you are. So it's easier to meet them where they are. Because whether you know it or not, most intuitive Black women have learned that giving themselves grace is a sign of weakness. And that's where the frustration and anger comes from, because when you believe that, it means that when you give yourself grace, you're going to be triggered to think you're doing something wrong. And in those moments, you're going to rely on negative self-talk to motivate yourself into action, to compensate for what's not aligned for you. And you're going to begin to avoid your humanity. You're going to begin to avoid your humanity by focusing on your inner critic instead of allowing your magic to emerge and to overflow. Now, here's the truth. Giving yourself grace is actually you taking responsibility for yourself. Giving yourself grace is you choosing to love yourself. Giving yourself grace is you choosing to honor your humanity. It is a beautiful gift that when you give to yourself, it's easier to give to others. And it took me 5 years, y'all, to learn this. It took me 5 years that giving myself grace was actually a key component of enjoying my life. And that doesn't have to be your story. It doesn't have to take you 5 years to do that. And this is why having a reliable system in place so that you can give yourself grace when it feels uncomfortable, so that you can know what tweaks to make when you get off track, is a non-negotiable. It's why I've opened my calendar to those of you that are watching this video or listening to this episode on Apple Podcast, so that you can book one of these self-trust audits and we can get crystal clear on where is it going to make the most sense for you to focus right now, so you can give yourself grace with joy and you can master this art form as you're showing up powerfully in every single area of your life. Now, before I go, are you listening to this episode on Apple Podcast? If so, I want to remind you to please give us a 5-star or a 6-star review, especially if you enjoyed today's conversation on giving yourself grace. The Yenory Pouncil podcast is a YouTube video podcast. So make sure you head to the show notes and you grab the link to our YouTube channel so that you can get the full-on video YouTube experience. You'll see this crown I'm wearing because she's regal. She comes with a crown every single time. And you get to catch the visuals that I share with you of the signature system that we use with our clients, that I use with myself, to be honest. If you're catching this on YouTube and you enjoy today's episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you feel aligned And you also hit the notification bell so that you can find out as soon as we release an episode, which is my intention to do on Wednesdays, y'all. Unless something happened like this past week where my computer was in repair, my in-laws were in town, I'm preparing for the masterclass or our masterclass experience that I'm teaching on April 30th. So it's been a busy week for your girl. Hence why you're getting this episode today instead of Wednesday when it is when I intend to release it. And because I have the tools I share with you today, I am overflowing with grace. I am giving myself all the love. I'm taking responsibility for myself in all the ways. And I can show up for you today powerfully. So in the next episode, I'm going to share with you the shifts that are required for your reality to change with ease and with flow. And that you can do this anytime perfectionism comes knocking on your door. Because those of us that are intuitive Black women, we are very familiar with the energy of perfectionism. And when you are integrating your intuition into every area of your life, you're going to be tempted to dance to the beat of perfectionism. And that's not going to support you. So I'm going to share with you what is going to support you so that you can put it in place and it can help you show up powerfully in the way that you desire. This is going to be another powerful piece of the puzzle to feel empowered and encouraged to show up for yourself with unconditional love, overflowing with mental calm and inner peace, especially as you put your intuition in charge of your life. Thank you for joining me today, Miss Amores. Thank you for joining me as another beautiful love letter, a beautiful episode of the Yenory Pouncil podcast, where every episode is a love letter to my future self and to intuitive Black women, leaders that are healing with joy. If you're new to the family, you're not new anymore because you made it to the end. My zone of brilliance is my ability to put my best self first by trusting my intuition in every single area of my life and doing it with joy. I am the go-to spiritual guide to intuitive Black women leaders that are desiring to prioritize their self-trust with joy. I am all about joy. I am committed to joy, to being joy, to overflowing with joy, to amplifying the energy of joy inside of you. And I am here to make sure that you see things clearly. Thank you for joining me, Miss Amores, and I will see you next time. Hasta luego.